What should be contained in state electricity policies? I'll be sharing that with you on this episode of Energy Explained, where we talk about state electricity markets and all things energy. In my last episode, I talked about the key considerations for state electricity laws. Now we'll be talking about state electricity policies. This is not specifically mentioned in the Electricity Act of 2023. Nonetheless, it is very important. My name is Olajumoke Delano, energy lawyer and electricity law consultant, and we'll be today walking through what you should include in your state electricity policy. So, what is a policy? A policy is a document that shows the general direction of a particular government in a particular area. And so the state electricity policy should have the strategic vision and the objectives of the state with respect to electricity. Where is the state going in terms of universal access? Is that the goal? And by what date? Is it by 2030? Is it by 2040? Nigeria has a net zero goal of by 2060. But what is the state's own goal for electrification of its citizens? This is important. So it defines the state's vision for energy access, for reliability, and for sustainability. It's important that a state comes together with its key officials to define where it is going. So it's important for the state to set a goal for electrification. So a state must have its own goal also. The second issue that should be of consideration in a state electricity policy is market development. How does the state intend to develop its market? What are the models that are going to be pursued? Models like franchising, like open access. What kind of models? How does the state, see this it transitioning from what it currently exists with the centralized regulation to state electricity regulated market? And how will it change over time? Who are the operators that are going to be? While more details will be provided within the state electricity law, there should be an overview of the type of players that will be permitted even to operate within the state electricity market within the policy. What about electrification planning? If the state has an energy deficit, for example, of 500 megawatts, how does it intend to close this energy deficit? Over what period of time? Using what kind of models? And how will its plan be developed? Some states have 5-year plans, electrification plans, which they review, developed by their state electrification agency and reviewed and approved by the State Ministry of Energy, but it's reviewed over a 5-year process and it allows them to keep track. How is the rural and the urban areas and the peri-urban areas, what priorities are going to be given to them? These are key issues that also must be contained in a state electricity policy. Another issue, sustainability. Sustainability directly leads to renewable energy goals. What are the renewable energy targets that each state is taking up as a personal responsibility? So the national goal is there, but how is each state going to contribute to this national goal? So what role will the state play in attaining the national goals? Does the state want to take a more aggressive goal towards achieving renewable energy targets? And because of the funding available for renewable energy projects, you find states adopting aggressive targets for renewable energy integration even into their energy mixes. So that is an important strategy that states need to include within their policy. States are competing for investments now. As each state decides to create its own electricity market, investments are going to be the target because the state can't fund these projects on its own. But it must create an enabling environment, that allows, investors, attracts investors. Some people call it like a beauty pageant, what state is the most attractive? in this pageant, in the quest for investments, local investments. And so the state must also, within its policy, talk about the incentives. Are there fast track processing, licensing? Some states also provide land. They make land available as their contribution, to energy projects, to help to reduce the eventual costs to the end user for electricity. That's one of the ways that states, in quotes, may decide to provide some form of incentive or subsidy into electricity projects. What kind of risk mitigation strategies or payment guarantees does the state want to provide, for the state electricity market? The objective for this policy is to provide a document that people who are interested in state electricity market can look at in order to decide, this state looks interesting. They look like they know what they're doing. They look like they're serious. And I think I'd like to pay a visit, to the Commissioner of Energy and the state governor within the state. Of course, tariffs are critical. Details of tariff methodologies will be provided in the state electricity law. But even knowing what are the tariff policy principles, the fact that recovery of investment is envisaged, cost-reflective tariffs that allow the investors to recover what they've invested and have a reasonable return. It's important to mention this within your policy documents. And what are the strategies you want to use to support low-income earners? This is also important for incorporation within your state electricity policy. Consumer empowerment. How would you encourage competition and choice where feasible? How do you promote transparency in billing, metering, and customer engagement? Because while you want to attract investors, the market must be one that is fair to all the stakeholders, not just the investors, but also the stakeholders, the end users, the investors, the regulators. There must be fairness, within the market that is being created. How will the targets that have been set for the state be monitored over the period that is being envisaged? So we talked about electrification planning. How do you keep track to ensure that your electrification plan is on course? The targets that have been set by the state government, how they intend to be monitored. And then last but certainly not least is capacity building and innovation. Human beings are the engine. They are the engine of growth. And so the state must invest in capacity building. The states must also recognize the different types of stakeholders. There must be gender representation, even in the state electricity policy, recognition of the disabled, the disadvantaged people. The policy must be robust enough to provide for the different categories of citizens that exist within the state in order to ensure that it is very inclusive. And also innovation. Innovation is one of the advantages of creating a state electricity market, because without innovation, the states will be in a rut. But they have the opportunity now with the powers to make laws for generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity. They have the opportunity to innovate because they are on a smaller scale than the nation. So states can really take advantage of innovation. So these are a few strategic considerations for drafting state electricity policies. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Looking forward to engaging with you on this and subsequent episodes of Energy Explained, looking at state electricity markets. My name is Olajumoke Delano. Take care. Bye.